Hey YouTubers, Gary here with this segment is going to be fabricating intake manifold number 2 for the quad. The intake manifold fabrication that we did a little earlier with the automotive hose, it didn't work out because I had some clearance issues with the studs and the nuts to tighten the flange down on the carburetor itself. It wouldn't clear the hose. The hose was mounted externally on the outside of the flange. So, still fighting not to pay that $63 for that little part. I realized that I needed to come up with a plenum between those two flanges that would work on the inside. So I went to the hardware store and man, I looked up everything that I could find, you know, and I was actually, what I was looking for was a piece of copper, like water pipe that you'd solder in together in your basement. The correct size, or real close to the size that would go inside of that flange. Didn't find it. However, what I did find, I carried around that flange with me in the store. What I did end up finding was the underneath your bathroom sink, the trap, that piping, that type of piping was exactly the right size to go inside of that flange. And being that it wouldn't sweat to it, I couldn't solder it inside of there. What I did was I took like a 2-part epoxy resin type of glue, and I glued it inside of the flange. Here it is. Here's the flange with that resin in there. Okay. Now it's a little long. The other flange is mounted on the motor, and this is just a hair long. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to try to position it again and see what we come up with. So let's go ahead and grind it off and see what we come up with. Okay, there it is, cut down to size. However, it's got some rough edges there on the inside, as you can see. It's got some pretty rough edges. So let's go ahead and lock it in the vise and file it. Well, now that we've got that cleaned up real nice and filed down, we'll go ahead and see how it fits into here. Okay. Looks like that's going to fit nicely. Okay, what we're going to do is, right now, we're going to go ahead and bolt this into the carburetor. We're going to set the carburetor in there. We're going to get this exactly turned the way that it needs to be. And then what I'll do is I'll take this flange out and I will tap them with a hammer to force them together, and then I'll use that same epoxy resin on this flange and resin it back together. Okay, that's how we're going to do this. We're going to take this flange, we're going to go ahead and mount it right there, and then we're going to turn it up like so. Okay. we'll go ahead and wait, I guess, to do that. Now we're going to go ahead and put it in place. See how it fits. Okay. Okay. That's basically exactly how that pup's going to go together. Just like that. That'll be epoxied in there. Okay. Now we'll check it from the other side. Looks good. Okay. And being that we have that straight now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark this. We're going to put a mark. We're going to take a marker and we're going to mark here. Okay, and then we're going to match a mark right on that flange. Okay, what that's for is so that I can take that flange off of that carburetor and I can tap it in there and then epoxy it, and I can make sure that that's lined up with that black mark. Alright, let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this flange back off. Okay, and here we've got our little black mark right there. Got our little black marker mark there. This flange has kind of got a hokey bend to it, so we're going to go ahead and put these together. And line those up like that. And we're going to go ahead and turn this over, and we'll give it a little tap tap. Okay, a little tap tap with a rubber hammer. Tap tap tap. Alright folks, and once again there's our new manifold. Okay, and I will be going ahead and putting a nice course of heat resistant epoxy resin in here, and down there on the inside I'll put it a little around there, but this is wedged in there nicely and it's not going to leak, and I believe that it's not going to be susceptible to heat problems. So let me know what you think, folks. Go down there in the little corner and make a comment. Thank you. Hopefully this will be the last video for these doggone things. And there it quickly is. There's the resin all mixed up and just kind of globbed around there. Now once it hardens, I'll sand it really good and it'll look just like one solid piece all the way through there. And then on the inside there, I've also resined it up to seal the inside of the pipe, and I've got a barrel sander put on my Dremel tool that I can go in there and sand that all down tomorrow after it's all dry, and it should be kind of almost like an OEM manifold without the rubber. I hope. Thanks for watching.